Well, class, it's another week in our graduate research and design class, and it's April 11th and this week we are focusing on qualitative data. I want to give you a congratulations, and the congratulations is warranted because you made it through our week on statistics. Yes, you made it. Now that's sort of in joking, but sort of not. I tend to be the kind of quantitative researcher. I tend to like statistics and how they work to find answers to questions, and whether we can determine something is actually happening because of a treatment or just by chance. But I think it's tough for someone entering into a new research class and understanding statistics. I had to take several classes on just what we covered in that week, basically, in this class. So it's not enough time for sure to be able to have a good intro to it. But that's all the time that we have. This week we're shifting focus toward qualitative data now. We talked about quantitative data last week and statistics. Now we're talking about data collection and analysis for qualitative research studies. And let's just think about a little bit about the types of questions that quantitative data can answer and the types of questions that qualitative data can answer. So qualitative data, you can answer questions that try to describe how somebody feels about something, or describe somebody's experience and what they think about things. So it's more about the feelings or thinking about things or describing a culture and how it functions. Those are qualitative type research questions. What you cannot answer with qualitative research studies are questions such as the effectiveness of one program over another, or whether this causes that. You cannot answer questions about those kinds of things. You can't answer if, for instance, a new implementation of a reading curriculum is actually improving student scores or not, because that's a quantitative question, not a qualitative question. You could answer, though, how students feel about going through this new reading curriculum, or what the teacher thinks, or what teachers think about the new reading curriculum and the issues that maybe they experience. That's a qualitative question. You cannot answer questions in qualitative research like this. What are the effects of a new task-centered learning implementation? Or whether counseling method B is better than counseling method C. You cannot answer those questions with qualitative research because that implies that you must collect data and you must compare the two treatment groups. In qualitative research, there really aren't any groups that are treatment or control. Instead, you can maybe ask questions like, how do counseling professionals feel about implementing counseling method C versus counseling method B? Or how do the patients feel about experiencing, and how do they experience counseling method B? So you can't really answer questions about effectiveness or cause and effect of certain programs with qualitative data, but you can answer questions of how people feel, how people experience things, and describe how people go through things, observations, and so forth. So I think that's important for this class to understand, that there are certain types of questions that can only be answered quantitatively, and certain types that can only be answered qualitatively. Alright, so if you are doing a qualitative project, well, if you're doing either a qualitative or quantitative project for your final research proposal that is upcoming, then you'll want to make sure that you select an appropriate data analysis technique for that proposal. So of course, if it's a quantitative research proposal, you'll want to choose something like ANOVA or a t-test, or something to determine a mathematical statistical procedure to determine whether there is a difference. But if you're using qualitative data or qualitative research, you're going to have to discuss your data analysis technique and your data collection techniques in detail for that final research proposal. You're going to have to convince me that you know what you're talking about and understand the qualitative data analysis and collection techniques. So these chapters will help you do that. They'll help you get that information that you need for qualitative data collection and analysis. And you'll also have to prove to me validity. well, how is your qualitative data actually valid? Does it actually measure, or is it actually saying what is reality or not? And how are you going to tell me that? So that the chapters will talk about that, especially chapter 19 about qualitative data collection and dealing with validity during that time. Now with qualitative data analysis, qualitative data collection, there are 4 different types of techniques that you can use. Observing is the first one, and that can be as a participant or as a non-participant. So that means when you actually watch what's going on in a certain setting, in a certain situation. So observation is one qualitative data collection technique. Interviewing, of course, is a big one too. An interview is a purposeful interaction. These can be structured where you have questions. My research study that you all participated in was a structured interview. Or it can be non-structured or unstructured. And it's more like a casual conversation rather than having a list of questions that you must stick to. Focus groups is another one. You can have a focus group, which is like an interview with multiple people. And that's part of an interview as well. And then questionnaires is another one. You can have people fill out questionnaires and answer questions with writing on those. And that's another qualitative data collection technique. And then finally, examining records. So there may be records that are pertinent to your study that you want to examine or get copies of. And that's the 4th qualitative data analysis or data collection method. But what's important is that you look at validity and reliability in qualitative data collection. And so you need to take care and look at that section in the chapter about validity and reliability and think about how you're going to make sure that you assure your data is valid and reliable for qualitative research, if that's the type of research that you're choosing to do. So make sure to take a look at that as an option. And then as you move on to qualitative data analysis, so beyond collection, once all the data is collected, which in qualitative data there is much more data collected than in quantitative data. Quantitative data, you can analyze it very quickly. You have a smaller amount of data you collect, and you can run the statistical procedures. As long as you know how to run them, they're very quick. But with qualitative data analysis, this is a very, very drawn out and long process. And so I need more detail about that from those of you who are doing qualitative studies as well in your proposal. So pay attention to the chapter on analysis so that you can be ready for your final research proposal assignment. It's much more involved than quantitative data analysis. For qualitative data analysis, you have mountains of data that you have to go through. And so tell me about the method. Now you're not actually, of course, doing your research study, and so you don't actually have to do this data analysis in reality unless it's something that you actually will do. But you do need to give me some details about how the process is going to go, because there's so much data. How are you going to get through it? So there are different items that you're going to do, and it gives a good process in the book about how you might go through that. So you'll want to follow that process when you are writing your research proposal or finishing out your final research proposal on that method. Now finally this week I just wanted to share with you some technological tools that can be used for qualitative data analysis. So part of the data analysis process means that you take all that text and all that information that you've gathered. Maybe it's an ethnographic research study, so you're out in the field, you're in that culture, and you have written tons of notes and taken pictures and all this stuff. So there are qualitative data analysis tools that help you to organize these things. And in my experience, I've used Weft QDA, which is an open source one, and then NVivo is a very common paid one. And so here's a screenshot of NVivo. And here's the text on the left. This is just the data itself, and it's been coded over here in the middle. And it says early artist, early directing, schooling, first job in the industry. It's a male world. So you see these have been coded. These paragraphs are coding, and coding is an important part of qualitative data analysis. They're coded with different themes. And you want to find all of the different paragraphs and text and information that leads into that theme. Let's say first job in the industry, it's a male world. So everything that has that theme should be linked. And NVivo allows you to do this. It allows you to code as you go through the data with different codes, and then you can select the codes over here, and then it will bring up all of the data that has to do with that code. That way it can be easily written up in a research report. Another example here is WEFT-QDA. And so WEFT-QDA allows much the same kind of a thing. You have the main content here, and you can code it into different codes, and all the content. When you click on a code, all the content that has to do with that code comes up in the window so that you can see everything that anyone has said or all the information that you've gathered about that single code or theme in your qualitative data analysis. But really that's what data analysis is about in qualitative research, is just gathering information and then putting it into different themes as you see them emerge. You don't know these themes before you started the analysis process, or maybe you do, but usually these themes come out of when you are actually analyzing the data instead of just a preconceived notion. You should have themes that emerge as you analyze the data. So that's just a basic intro. WEFT-QDA is the software that I have used before with qualitative data analysis, although I tend to be a little bit more quantitative, as I mentioned, so I've used SPSS and other statistical software more often. But WEFT-QDA, and then there's another one called NVivo, which is paid, costs money, for qualitative data analysis. Now you don't need to have any of these for this class, but it's something to be aware of if you might do qualitative data analysis in the future. Alright, well, don't forget, next week on the 23rd is your research report. Your final proposal is due. You're going to be adding 3 new sections to that, especially the data analysis methods section. So pay attention, whether it's quantitative. If it's quantitative data analysis and a quantitative research study that you're doing, you want to include a statistical procedure. If it's qualitative, you're going to have to talk about some of the things we've learned in this, or we're reading in this week, and how you'll use those data analysis techniques in your final proposal. So have a good week.